In a story that has triggered debates online and abroad, an Australian author based in the United States has shared a troubling account of his recent travels through Nigeria, raising fresh questions about security practices and, most importantly, corruption. In a video he shared on social media, Mark Pollard said that during his stay in Nigeria, he was asked for a cash at least 10 times by officials at airports and on the roads, including at checkpoints and even at his hotel, which he described as more focused on extracting money than ensuring his safety.
Pollard questioned whether some of the country's many security checkpoints are genuinely set up for public protection or are turned into shakedown checkpoints, highlighting how stressful and frustrating his experience was. While his remarks have sparked reactions online, including concerns about Nigeria's image and travel experience for foreigners, he also acknowledged some positive aspects of his visit, even citing Nigeria's vibrant fashion sense as a highlight. Let's take a look at the video, and we'll be joined by him shortly.
The entire country is set up to shake people down, because coming in and out of the airports there, I was told, now you give me cash at least 10 times. A lot of the roads have security checkpoints, but are they security checkpoints or shakedown checkpoints? Even going into my hotel, people weren't just looking me up and down to see if I was carrying anything dangerous. They were looking me up and down to see if there's anything that they could ask me for. Am I overreacting? Because this must stress you out on a daily basis. I was just visiting and I had a lot of fun. And I would say in Africa, Nigeria, #1 at fashion.
We'll take the compliment. Let's hope that there's more where that came from. Joining us this morning to share his personal experiences, author and teacher, Mark Pollard. Thank you very much, Mark, for joining us this morning.
Hey, pleasure to be here.
Right, great to have you. Let's start from the very beginning. What brought you to Nigeria, and walk us through your very first impression when you arrived?
Well, I was doing events through Africa. So I did South Africa, Johannesburg, I did Nairobi in Kenya, I did Abuja, I did Lagos, and then I did Cairo. And funnily enough, my friends in Africa seem to not think that Egypt is part of Africa. It's quite funny the way they discuss it. So I was there to do events. And I arrived through a bad airport over in Tomo, and then went over to Abuja and had this weird experience where you've got to fill in this entry form, right? So the signage wasn't that clear. I'm wheeled into a room. The people in the room are lovely, but it was kind of a frustrating and complicated experience. I come out of the room. Everybody else has gone through. I show my stuff to the one guard, really big guy, and now he goes, "No, you give me money." And I was like, "Oh, is this what it's going to be like?"
Now, Mark, you mentioned being asked for cash multiple times during your trip. How can you describe where and how these incidents typically occurred? Was it mostly at airports, checkpoints, or other places? Take your time to tell us the story, walk us through your experience.
So look, the first one was coming into Abuja with this official, and then even when I gave my documents to the two gentlemen who were the next people, right? And that's the thing I think to think about. Nigeria, there are too many people in the airports, and they only exist to shake you down. Like, there's no reason for a lot of these people to be in the airports. And even the two gentlemen who did not ask me for money, they're looking at my wrist. And I traveled 45 cities last year. I don't travel with anything on me. Like in Colombia, they say no da papaya, which means don't give papaya the fruit, don't show off anything. So I go very minimal. But they're looking me up and down as if they're like sniffing me. And everyone will ask you a question like, "Oh, where are you from?" And it's with this look in their eyes where they really want to get to that next question, which is, oh, no, it's not even a question. It's now you give me USD, now you give me money. In Kenya, they say send me money or send me a pesa. So Abuja was the first one. I'd say the most annoying one was on the way out, where in the airport in Lagos, I go into the door and the guy says, "Where do you need to go?" Points to me to the direction that I need to go, and then he goes, "Now you give me money." The line there is super confusing. Nobody knew what was happening. And then we finally get through to the section just after you would check in, right? You've got to go from just where you checked in to going through this gauntlet run of officials. And the guy who greeted me at the door, he's got a yellow vest on. I don't know if he's even working there or whatever. He's also next to me now, and he goes, "Oh, you go there, and now you give me money." And he's smiling, but he's saying it in an aggressive way. The problem with the airport in Lagos is you have to do, like, I spoke to 13 people to get onto my plane. 7 of them asked me for money in the airport. First of all, you go up to one person and you give them the passport. Another person looks at your exit visa. Another person will say, "Are you carrying cash?" Another person will touch me down, pat me down just before I was getting on the plane. And they're always like awkwardly, intimately close. And then it's as if it's like you're their Valentine's Day focus, and they'll go, now you give me money. And so like the Lagos experience or Lagos airport experience was probably the worst.
Probably the worst, you might want to say. Well, I hope you're also aware, by the way, let's also bring it to your notice that the minister and well-meaning Nigerians have tried doing something concerning this to curb the incessant request of money. We do have foreigners who have also traveled into the country. They've also highlighted these key issues. And
even Nigerian citizens, yeah.
You know, but that doesn't really paint the picture of who Nigerians truly are. Hence why we have you this morning to share how and when, so that we can take it up with the officials and find lasting solutions to it. But I just want to ask, aside from the request made at the airport, was there any other place you went to when you came in that you had the same issue? Because we know the airport is predominantly, most times, I mean, to be honest, faced with that particular issue. Anywhere else where you face this problem?
Look, I gave some food to some people who were doing security at the hotel, and that's totally fine. But it's more like when you're going in, they're looking you up and down, as in, what can I get from you? And I know the look. Like I've gone through Brazil, I've gone through Colombia, I've gone through Mexico. I know the look. It doesn't happen as much there. And then I was lucky because I had people taking care of me. You know, we had a fancy car. We had people put me in a Range Rover. We had a convoy in one city as well. Why did we have to do that though, right? And I remember one of the checkpoints, you know, they're coming in, they're looking at my wrist, they're looking at what I'm carrying, they're asking a few questions, got through. None of the checkpoints asked me for money, but I know it happens because that's why my friends are like, we're going to put you in a car so that you can avoid a lot of these issues, because the issues are widely known as the checkpoint. And I also want to be super clear that there's probably like 2,000 or 3,000 comments, and most of them are saying, yeah, we go through this too. I'm not doing this as a white colonialist. I'm not doing this from like a white colonizer point of view. My feeling was for my friends there. I taught 200 people, and I'm like, is this your daily life? Because that would be so stressful. How do you get ahead in life if you've got systems around you constantly dragging you back? So I just want to be really clear. My experience was frustrating. I'd be nervous about going back, especially after doing this interview. But my main interest is in the locals. And it reminds me, I'm a teacher. I love people's potential. And there's this beautiful quote from a lady called Layla Jana. She passed away when she was 37. She said, talent is evenly distributed, but opportunity is not. So I just want to be clear that when I'm frustrated in the country, it's frustrating for me personally. I'm more worried about what's happening systematically for entire generations that are getting squeezed by their own people.
And it's very important. That's why we're having this conversation, Mark. And your post did go viral. And I did take time to look at some of the comments. And in the comment section, some people were very defensive, you know, being patriotic. And they said, no, you know, this also happens in the West. We pay tips when we go to the West. Is there a difference? I mean, could you, for the sake of our viewers, let them know the difference between tipping and a shakedown and also being entitled to another person's money? The sense of entitlement.
Yeah, this is
comes with it.
What I experienced was not tipping culture, because they weren't doing anything for me. Half of them didn't even need to be doing what they were doing. This is that blessing culture, the allowance culture. I spent a bunch of time in different countries in the sub-Saharan Africa, and there's slightly different culture around money. So just a simple one, for example, in Nigeria, now you give me money. In Kenya, send me money or send me a peso. So these little nuances. I hear about the black tax. I hear about girlfriend allowance. I hear about maybe you've got to bribe your way to get a job in some of these countries, for example. I hear that you've got to become a politician so that you can actually make money because everything else is so hard. Like I listen. I'm a researcher. I listen to these things. What I experience is not tipping culture. Like if you're patting me down literally before I get onto a plane and you're a big man and then you go, where are you from? Australia, okay, and New York, okay, now you give me USD. That's not a tip. Do something for me and I'll give you a tip maybe.
Wait, just to clarify, they actually did say that to you?
Yeah, the guy who was patting me down before I get on the airplane, and I'm like, so I didn't respond, right? Because I'd gone through the airport already. Everyone's asking, everyone's looking, everyone's sniffing around, right? When you're in that situation, it feels like everyone's like, what can I get out of you? And I really don't like that feeling. It puts me on edge. And then I'm like, if I don't give this guy money, am I going to get on the plane? And so I just said nothing. And he goes, oh, are you okay? That's not a nice tipping culture. That's a guy being not a nice person. There are words for that. But that's not a tipping culture. Well, that's a shakedown culture.
Just to reiterate again, I know my colleague did mention this earlier, where I don't know if you did see them. We do have like boards and flyers in the airport that says, do
The
not
signs.
share money to these people, do not give money to these people who are asking for money. Unfortunately, I do believe that there are bad eggs everywhere, right? And we're hoping that with interviews like this, we're highlighting the ills, and we will reach out to the Airport Authority of the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria as well as the the Ministry of Interior, and take up this conversation. But beyond these negative experiences, you did mention that Nigeria's fashion scene and cultural vibrancy, there were some positives that stood out for you. What was the positive things, or what were the positive things that your experience brought to you here in Nigeria?
Yeah, well, I want to, hopefully I can come back because I want to experience Deti December a little bit. Look, I love Afrobeats, so obviously Nigeria is a beast in Afrobeats. And at one of the events that I did, I had about 180 people come through, and they all had to come up this staircase and then into this door, into this big room. And after about 10 people, I was like, is this a fashion runway? Like, why is everyone dressed so well? Everyone dressed up amazingly to come to my event. And I'm like, is that because this is a special event? Is this normal? But I would say in Africa, Nigeria is #1 at fashion. I think Kenya's around there as well. Just so much flair and so much color. And, I think I get frustrated with the systems in these countries that are holding people down. It's everywhere, and it's probably increasing in most countries in the world. I'm not picking at Nigeria. I'm pro-Nigeria. I'm pro-Nigerians. I'm pro-people. Pro-talent, pro-creativity, but the systems, they just get in the way. So if someone's like, well, it's because the people in the airport, and I heard some weird theories, if it's because the people in the airport aren't paid enough, well, that's a problem, fix it. I heard a theory that it's...
All right, we're still speaking with Mark Pollard, who's detailing his encounter visiting Nigeria. Unfortunately, the shakedown culture that many have criticized, but also he's spoken to some of the positives that he's seen in Nigeria, how we are a beast in Afrobeats, fashion sense, and there's so much really to look at when you think of the country and our young entrepreneurial economy, our young entrepreneurial community, and the fact that we have young people who are making things happen. Yes, it is unfortunate that there are those bad eggs, and we will continue to speak about these ills. And all right. I believe that we have Mark back in the conversation. Welcome back, Mark. You were speaking about some of the positives that stood out for you, regardless of the the sour spots. But if you may, please go ahead with sharing some of the exciting things you noted about Nigeria while you were here. You did say you want to come back to experience that in December. I urge you to come back. And before then, we would have taken this up with the authorities. But please go ahead.
I mean, there's a famous choreographer who left a comment on my post, and I said, you're going to have to choreograph a dance for me to get through the Lagos airport unscathed. Sorry about that, my phone overheated. Look, I think, there are different reputations about Nigeria and Nigerians in a lot of the countries that I go to. Nigerians in Kenya, there's definitely a point of view. For me, Dede December, the nightlife, I love Afrobeats, the food's really good, the fashion's really good. There's a lot of talk in various countries about the education level of a lot of Nigerians, doctors, lawyers, all that, and I don't mean that in a patronizing way. It's just that a lot of these stories, they don't get much airtime in the world. Like, what does get airtime is the scamming culture, the begging culture, etc., which is super unfortunate because you've got a massive country, very young population, so much potential. Imagine having a little bit more energy, which is, I see that you're a real news channel, which is quite refreshing, having spent 14 years in the US. And imagine having a little bit more energy where there's more people with power saying, how do we provide more opportunity to people? How do we help them be more creative? How do we help them build businesses? How do we help them get capital, get funding to actually build businesses, rather than what I see in a few of the countries where this begging culture leads to a certain laziness. Kenya's the same, semi-money culture. Some people ask people for money 20 to 30 times a day, just hoping to get a little bit of money. They could spend that time into building a business, maybe working a job, although there's a lot of youth unemployment. So these are complicated issues, but clear leadership signals where there's almost an embrace of, especially a youth population, where there's a sense that there is real opportunity, because Nigerians are smart. It's not even about education. They're smart and ingenious and innovative. And I just hope more people get a chance.
All right, Mark Pollard, thank you very much for sharing your experience with us. We look forward to hosting you again in Nigeria under different circumstances.
I'll see you all in a club, right?
These two in the club.
No. That guy there.
Thank you.
All right, Mark, take care. Have a good day.